An addiction is anything that gives us some relief from the underlying pain that we carry. And so much of our pain is the absence of us, the ways we have disconnected, vacated, dissociated, abandoned ourself as a means of survival. And the ways our body responds to that over time is a signal of pain or anxiety.
This is the Pursuit of Wellness podcast, and I'm your host, Mari Llewellyn. Hi guys, welcome back to the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Mari, and today we have a very exciting guest, Dr. Scott Lyons. He is a licensed holistic psychologist, educator, and author of the book Addicted to Drama: Healing Dependency on Crisis and Chaos in Yourself and Others. He's also the host of the Gently Used Human podcast, a delightfully depthful and honest, hilarious exploration of what it is to be human, to have lived life and come out gently. I think this is a topic that is really common. Once sitting down with him, it's so interesting how so many of us kind of get in these habits of creating drama, chaos, focusing on the negativity in our lives. I know I was very much in a cycle of that back in the day when I was in college. Before my fitness journey, I kind of lived in a victim mentality and looked for chaos and created chaos when it doesn't exist. Honestly, I think a lot of us grow up in kind of chaotic households, and that's what feels comfortable to us. So we end up bringing that into our adult lives. And Scott is going to give us tools on how to essentially stop doing that. I think this is such a great method. He helps people break free from cycles of pain, limited beliefs, and trauma. He's an innovator in transformative wellness and trauma therapy, teaching over 500,000 people internationally to relieve stress and restore vitality. Today, we are going to talk about his background in drama and chaos, his rock bottom with drama addiction, what is drama addiction, trauma responses and triggers, recognizing trigger moments and reflecting on responses, acknowledging avoidance and creating space, processing the feelings and feeling safe in your own body, navigating your own identity and sitting in discomfort, walking away from friendships, and setting up boundaries with drama addicts. Maybe there's someone in your family that you're close with. Maybe it's a friend. That can be a difficult thing to work on. We also talk about ketamine treatments and preparatory work. Honestly, such an interesting conversation, guys, and one that I think you're going to really love. So without further ado, let's hop into this conversation. Dr. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so fun to be with you.
I'm so excited. We have so much to discuss.
So much to talk about.
So much drama.
So much drama.
And the addiction to drama.
I'm here for it. Are you?
I'm so here for it.
Do you have an addiction to drama?
I don't, but my husband does. And we were just discussing this. And after, I think when I heard addiction to drama, my immediate thought was like high school gossip.
Yes.
And it actually is so much broader than that.
Yeah.
The chaos, addiction to work,
Yeah.
anything that's kind of like a distraction.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about the definition.
Yeah.
I'd love to just start with how you initially got into this line of work.
Well, especially around drama. Like, I'm a recovering drama addict. Let's just be real about it. I come from a long lineage of folks who really used drama to avoid their trauma. Like, let's be real about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the behaviors and the exaggerations and the intensification of their behaviors and their emotions was really like my normal. And it wasn't really till I got away and got to school and was like, this type of behavior, this type of way of living isn't really healthy anymore. Like, I know we both lived in New York, and I really realized that the times I got out of New York, I couldn't sleep. Like, I missed the buzz. I missed the vibration. I would go out in nature and all the sounds of like the chirping of birds would keep me up. And I was like, where are the cars? Where's the chaos?
Yeah.
And it soon became really clear that I was needing that. Like, it was almost like I couldn't thrive without some type of, intense interactions and loud noises. And so part of my grad school process was to like uncover what is that. And that's how I got into this addiction to drama material because I figured out that was me and a whole hell of a lot of other people.
I think a ton of people.
Yeah.
And it really is like this distraction that we're
Yeah.
all living in.
Yeah.
What would you say was your rock bottom with drama addiction?
Oof. I had just gotten divorced. I was, um, I had gotten drugged at a club and was in a hospital for a week. And when I got out, I started like getting into fights with my sister who like was there supporting me, and I would feel like the only thing like, and I was having this mass anxiety attack constantly, and the only thing that would soothe me was to call my ex, who is pretty fucking toxic, and I was going, what is this that I need this level of toxicity to feel quote unquote normal again?
Yeah.
And that was really when I was like, I have to change this or it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you define as drama addiction? All different types. Like,
Sure.
what are some examples of drama addiction in different types of people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can maybe start with defining drama. And what the funny thing is like we all know it, right? Like if I say to you, do you know someone addicted to drama? Before you even read the book, you'd be like, hell yeah. Like we all viscerally know what it is, but we haven't maybe had as much opportunity to define it or unpack it.
Yeah.
And so drama is the unnecessary turmoil and stress. It's the way we exaggerate and intensify our behaviors, our emotions, our stories. And it's a real like disproportionate amount of energy to what's needed to functionally adapt to what we're dealing with. It's like blowing out a birthday candle with a fire hose, or it starts to sprinkle outside, so you jump into a hurricane shelter. It's absolutely disproportionate. It's the unnecessary amount of time, energy, focus, emotion to get something actually done or to communicate something.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of ways it shows up. You know, we'll talk about your husband on the way it shows up there. But like, no, like I think it's important for all of us to like at home who are listening to go, how does this show up either in my friends or my parents or me, maybe perhaps just a little bit. But it's, for those who are making drama, it's usually like they're making mountains out of molehills. They're using intense language to share something that maybe doesn't need it. They're always overscheduling themselves and then, I don't know, complaining about how overwhelmed they are. They have, I saw your face on that one.
I feel personally attacked.
I feel personally supportive of your personal attack.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lots of other ways. Big relationships, big fights, big breakups. It's they feel anxious when things are calm.
Yeah.
And I think we can all relate to that a little bit, especially now when we're such an urgency culture, overstimulation culture, is like when there's space in that, it's almost like we don't know what to do anymore.
Yes. I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day about seeing gaps in my calendar and immediately panicking.
Really?
Yes. And trying to think, well, what could I do to fill this? And I'm really trying to get more comfortable with that open time.
Yeah.
And using it in a way that I truly want to rather than shoving it full with things that don't serve me.
Yeah. Have you ever done like a Vipassana where you just like take like a week and like in a quiet space, no technology?
Absolutely not.
It's a hellscape.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, but do it. It's like, I remember the first time I took a technology break and so much panic in me. It was like, I kept searching for the phone. I would like just turn my hand up as though my phone was in my hand. I mean, how many of us have our phone in our hand and without actually the notification going off, look at it?
It's like obsessive.
It's an obsessive response. We actually are interrupting our own peace by doing that, or interrupting our own focus.
Yeah.
And that's actually a big part of an addiction to drama is like, how are we reflexively interrupting our own calm, our own ease? Like if you ever like try to meditate and all of a sudden you feel, or you're walking through a beautiful garden or you're in a bathtub and you find yourself starting to think about like what you have to do at work on Monday, or you start thinking about a friend and then you get into a fight with that friend in your head. Ever do that?
Yes.
That's signs of an addiction to drama, the ways we interrupt our own peace and we don't even realize it. And what's, funky about it is that all the narratives we're making up in our head, we have a physiological response as though they're actually happening.
Wow. Where do you think this drama addiction is coming from? Like, what's the origin?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's multiple origins. And I would say like the old school origin is going to be different than where we are now, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. One is like, one of the things I say is like, what was the ecosystem like in your family? Like I grew up in a house of chaos. The environment was chaos. And as infants, we're sponges. So we're actually adapting that. That becomes our rhythm. That becomes the way we operate, is the tempo of our environment. And so chaos became my internal state. And it also became the currency of love in my family. You didn't get attention until things were wrong. And so that was rewarded. So if I was sick or I didn't do well at school or I got into a fight with my sister or whatever it took to get that attention, to finally feel seen and heard and met, and so you act out the currency of love and you bring that forward into your adult relationships as well. I mean, how many of us have maybe picked a fight with our partner because we didn't feel like we could share our feelings and needs, but wanted them to see us? I don't know. Me, everyone in this room.
Me.
Yeah.
100%. The Pursuit of Wellness is sponsored by BetterHelp. I feel like throughout my journey, something I have done consistently is stick with therapy. Therapy has been just such a great way for me to get out big stresses, little stresses. Through everything I've been through, I've stayed really consistent, and I think it's been a huge piece of my healing journey. And I always recommend to friends who are going through things, talk to a therapist. I really think it is the best thing you can do. It's an amazing way to learn coping skills, set boundaries, and really empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of trying therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/pow today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/pow. You guys know I've been through so much with my skin. I've had acne for over 10 years at this point, on and off. And it's been really difficult for me to find skincare I actually trust. And that's why I love ClearStem. ClearStem is the first skincare line that combines all three categories: anti-acne, anti-aging, clean, meaning free of hormone disruptors, and pore clogging fillers. Something I've discovered along the way is it's really easy to get pulled into trends online, on TikTok, on Instagram, trying tons of different serums and moisturizers, but so many of them have pore cloggers. And if you have super sensitive skin like me, that really isn't a game you want to be playing. You want to stick to something you know works. And for me, that's ClearStem. I recommend it to everyone who struggle with acne. I absolutely love the founders, Danielle and Kaylee. They have both struggled with acne themselves, so they really understand what it's like and what they need to be putting in their products. My other favorite tool they have on their website is the acne lab test. It's helping thousands of people get to the root cause of their acne through comprehensive lab testing and lifestyle-based recommendations. I always say getting to the root cause of your acne is the best first step to clearing your skin, and I love that they appreciate that and offer it on their website. Visit clearstemskincare.com and use code POW, P-O-W, at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that's code POW for 20% off your first purchase on clearstemskincare.com.
Yeah, there's multiple origins. That when we have these wounds as kids, as so many of us do, like of not being met by our parents or our caregivers, that has a physiological effect. We freeze.
Yeah.
And in that freeze, we also develop or we get overwhelmed if there's trauma, and we freeze And in that freeze, whether it's shame or whatever the disruption is in our nervous system, we dissociate, we disconnect. And also with that, we become numb. So numbness is a form of protection from the underlying pain of not being met, of our underlying pain of our trauma.
Yeah.
And that numbness creates, this way of not feeling alive. So we seek sensation to feel something, to confirm our aliveness. Yeah. And so whether that's, I don't know, jumping out of a plane with hopefully a parachute, or getting into fights with teachers, or getting into fights with friends, or overscheduling, or, overcommitting, whatever it is that gives you that sort of stress response that rises above a threshold of numbness to make you feel alive. And then it's rewarded, right? We get that dopamine hit of like, I'm alive. Yeah. And so we keep searching for that instead of going underneath to why are we chasing the drama? Because we can't tolerate being with the underlying trauma or the underlying pain, the underlying wounding that's there.
Wow. So powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like I relate in so many ways. So when you were describing, what drama addiction can look like, it actually reminded me a lot. I was diagnosed with BPD in college.
Really?
Yes. Oh. I no longer meet the characteristics for it, but BPD was a huge part of my life for a majority of like my 20s and as a teenager. And a lot of the diagnosis was about these sort of like over dramatic, and I feel weird saying that word, but sort of like excessive emotions to a small situation.
Yes.
And it's interesting hearing it in this definition, because even if you don't have BPD, we're all kind of creating more conflict than necessary.
Absolutely.
And you're saying it's because we don't know how to feel the other feelings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we can't feel with the tenderness of our underlying feelings. So sometimes we throw something much bigger.
Yeah.
We turn up the decibel of it.
Yeah.
So as to avoid the actual vulnerability of being with it.
Totally.
And, for those who don't know, BPD is borderline personality disorder.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
And, there's something really interesting here about how our physiology works in terms of why people perceive we're exaggerating, even though on the inside we feel like it's truth.
Mm-hmm.
So like after trauma, or, trauma is often considered like the event or the impact, but trauma has a lot to do with the way we adapt in response to the next potential threat.
Right.
That's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so our whole physiology, the way we see, the way we smell, the way we taste, even the way we touch, is all adapting to perceived threat. And so our focus becomes like very attuned to cues of danger.
Right.
And so that's what we're hooked on. And so we're responding to cues of danger that are even really subtle. And so our response feels justified, even though we're missing and ignoring most cues of safety.
Yes. You posted this quote that I love.
Yeah.
You said, hard fact, triggers are your truth, but may not be the truth.
Yeah.
Explain what you meant by that.
Yeah. I mean, in that way, it's like we often go, you did this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got into a fight with my partner and I was like, and my trigger was like, you made me feel like shit. And I was like, oh my gosh. When I backed away, I was like, no, you reminded me of something in my past that is so deeply wounded that I couldn't even attend to it. So I like just threw my anger at you, as opposed to being with the deep sadness of like being bullied when I was a kid.
Wow.
And so like, it's just such a hard adulting thing to do, is to recognize what we often do is like project and deposit our feelings on other people, as opposed to taking the responsibility of healing, which means that we have to attend to where did that emerge from in us?
So good. I feel like, I mean, do you find, even though you have all this knowledge and you are, obviously so well versed on this topic, that you sometimes fall into that habit too?
Oh, totally. I'm still an asshole. It's funny when I used to teach meditation and stuff, and people were like, what's the benefit? And I would say, I'm slightly less of an asshole than I used to be.
Love.
I mean, I'm humanizing it.
It's an evolution.
It's an evolution. And it's like, even with as much knowledge, we don't want to like be in this like wellness washing, which is, okay, I've drank the green juice. I've gone on a meditation retreat. I've gone to therapy 20 times. I'm well and great, and everyone else is an asshole.
I'm better than everyone.
And I'm better than everyone. And it's like, I've been in therapy since I was 5.
Wow.
And it would be so easy for me to turn to like a partner or a friend and just be like, I've done way more than you are. I've definitely evolved way past where you are. And so I'm right, you're wrong. And I do that. No, I'm just kidding. Once in a while it happens.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's like, it's like we're an onion. We're constantly peeling away the layers. And it's not about getting to this ultimate place of healing, because I don't really know what that is, or when and if we will even come to that in this lifetime. But it's really celebrating like, oh my gosh, I wake up in the morning and I don't have that anxiety when I wake up anymore. That feeling in my chest of doom, of like the next thing is going to hurt me or harm me. Like, that's amazing. And if that's all I get in this lifetime, that I wake up and I'm like, I'm open to the possibilities of today. Fuck yeah.
Yes.
Can we swear on your podcast?
Yes, fuck yes.
Okay, great.
Fuck yes, you can.
Because it's happened.
I think that's such a good point. It's not about perfection. It's about getting closer to the end goal.
Yeah. And perfectionism is just another symptom of an addiction to drama. It's the unattainable. So it's like we keep driving towards the unattainable, knowing that we can never get it. What is happening to our nervous system in response?
Oh my gosh.
We're constantly revving ourselves up in activation, that stress response.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting talking about the trauma piece. We all have different life experiences. So just to give an example of my own, last night with my husband, Greg, he had to work late and we had a plan to go on a walk and get dessert or whatever. And I have a severe abandonment issue that used to really trigger me. But now I feel like I'm in a much better place with it. I can kind of like take a pause before I react, and I feel much better about it. But last night I had been traveling. I was tired. I was stressed. And I found myself just triggered again and kind of like taking it out on him as anger.
Wow.
And I was like, this hasn't happened to me in a while. Why is this happening right now? And I recovered from it faster. But it's just interesting how it does, it shows up every now and again.
What lets you recognize that you were in the trigger? Like I'm so curious about that.
I think because it was an unreasonable amount of emotion.
Okay.
Like I was like, I don't usually feel this way.
Yeah.
Like this has happened before where he has to work late. This isn't an unusual circumstance, but I'm having an unusually strong emotional response.
Yeah. So you're like measuring like, ooh, this is like a decibel of 8.
Yes.
This doesn't feel or make a lot of sense. So there's a part of you, like a witness part of you, that's outside of the trigger that's going, let's take a look at this. This feels a little funky.
Especially the next morning. Like this morning I reflected back and I was like, oh, I think that I was a little, like, I was triggered in that moment.
Yeah.
For sure.
And how did he take that when you were able to share that?
I didn't share it.
Greg, if you're listening,
I'm sorry.
We're sharing it now.
I didn't say anything. I was just like,
okay.
I started off on a better foot the next morning.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to like acknowledge that you were maybe overreacting.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame built into this process.
Yes.
Because if, like even when I was in the throes of my addiction to drama and I would have a fucking meltdown for no seemingly good reason. And then the next day I was like, I remember I lost my wallet at a movie theater and I called the movie theater place and talked to the manager. I totally got to that point of saying how important, how their security is not good enough and I just went at them. This was when I was 13 or 14.
Oh, wow.
And I remember my aunt cheering me on. Of course, again, a long lineage of those who have an addiction to drama. And I remember the day after, that phone call, and I felt shame.
Mm.
But instead of being with the shame, I kept retelling the story. I kept venting. I called my other friends up and I was like, I did this because they were so wrong and it's their fault my wallet got stolen in a movie theater and da 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 da. And so it was another way of avoiding even my own internal mechanism or recognition that like something is funky.
It's like rather than acknowledging, you
Yeah.
kind of want to get the response that you want to hear from other people.
Yeah. Like I think I put this example in the book, or maybe it got taken out. So many examples got taken out because they could have been identified.
We need a part 2 of the book of all the parts that were taken out.
Oh my gosh, so many parts got taken out.
X-rated part 2.
And I remember, so I got this email from someone who was furious. They're like, you didn't send this important information on time and you're going to mess this whole training program up and blah, 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 blah. And I went back and I re-forwarded them the email I had sent 3 weeks prior with all the information. And instead of them just saying like, oh, I'm so sorry, I must have missed that email, they said in response, you could have sent this an hour earlier. And I was like,
oh.
And it's like, I could have easily gone into my own addiction to drama with their addiction to drama and been like, well, da 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 da, and just escalated it.
Right.
But I just said, I hear you, which is also kind of an asshole move.
Well, I actually like that because it feels mature.
It is.
And it almost, I think sometimes those are the most powerful responses because
Yes.
it makes the other person sort of reflect on what they have contributed.
Ish. Like I would like to think that they would, be able to turn back and go, they didn't engage in the drama with me.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if I overreacted. But so many of us keep revving ourselves, keep pushing, keep avoiding the contact with our own, again, vulnerable feelings or shame in that way of the intensification or exaggeration. We keep finding all the ways to justify it.
Yes.
And that's the danger and the mechanism that keeps us in this loop is the ways we justify our behavior. It's like overscheduling ourselves, for example. As you said, like there was a break in your calendar and the justification could be like, if I don't keep working, I could lose everything.
Yeah.
And so there's the justification to actually, I'm not going to address the underlying anxiety. I'm not going to address what it is to have space in my life, because in space, I may contact the vulnerable wounds or the feelings or the sensations in my body that have otherwise been kind of overridden or ignored.
On this show, we've brought on many brain health experts, and it's something that I really want to focus on and be more intentional about as I get older, the way I live, eat, and take care of my body. And I feel like when it comes to snacks and things we're choosing to eat, it's important to focus on those ingredients. And that's where I heard about Mosh. You may have heard about it on Shark Tank. It was founded by Maria Shriver and her son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, with a simple mission to create conversation about brain health through food, education, and research. Maria's father suffered from Alzheimer's, and since then, she and Patrick have dedicated themselves to finding ways to help other families dealing with this debilitating disease. So Mosh joined forces with the world's top scientists and functional nutritionists to go beyond the average protein bar. They have 8 delicious flavors, including a plant-based one in peanut butter and chocolate. I love the banana bread flavor personally. Each Mosh bar is made with ingredients that support brain health like ashwagandha, lion's mane, collagen, and omega-3s. I really love the fact that they have such a strong mission behind this bar. It also has 10 grams of protein. You're supporting brain health, and I couldn't think of a better thing to eat during the day to keep yourself going. If you want to find ways to give back to others and fuel your body and brain, Mosh bars are the perfect choice for you. Head to moshlife.com/pow to save 20% off plus free shipping on the bestsellers trial pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on the bestsellers trial pack at moshlife.com/pow. Thank you, Mosh, for sponsoring this episode. You guys know I drink a ton of water throughout the day. It's something I started doing on my fitness journey and have continued. But something I'm really conscious of is trusting my tap water. I think many of us know we can't fully trust our tap water. Having safe, clean water is really the last thing you want to worry about. Unfortunately, according to extensive research by the Environmental Working Group, 3 out of 4 homes in America have harmful contaminants in its tap water, which is absolutely insane that we need to think about this. But that's where AquaTrue comes in. AquaTrue purifies using a 4-stage reverse osmosis purification process, and their countertop purifiers work with no installation or plumbing. I personally have the under the sink purifier, which I love. I can just grab water for myself, the dogs, whatever, and know that it's safe. It removes 15 times more contaminants than ordinary pitcher filters and are specifically designed to combat chemicals like PFAs in your water supply. This is so crucial, guys. And if you're not able to do the under the sink option, getting the countertop purifiers work amazing. We actually have one at the Bloom office because I want to make sure the girls are drinking purified water. It's so important, especially with the amount of water we're drinking throughout the day, whether it's coffee, tea, our dogs, babies, etc. Long-term exposure to high concentrations of PFAs can lead to adverse health effects like cancer, endocrine system disruption, and liver toxicity, which is why I'm so happy that the AquaTrue removes PFAs. And I can truly taste the difference compared to my old filtered water, and I just feel so much better about my whole family having purified water. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, my listeners receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com/POW. That's AQUATRU.com/POW, POW, and automatically receive 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com/POW. I also feel like overworking or overscheduling is celebrated.
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you get celebrated for having a work ethic, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
and for being as busy as possible. Busy is celebrated,
Busy is
right?
celebrated.
And something I hear a lot of people say, and I've also said myself, is, oh, I can't not be busy because then I can hear my own thoughts.
Yeah.
I literally hear so many people using that phrase now.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we're all on our phones all day.
Yeah.
We jump from thing to thing to thing just so that we don't sit still and listen to what we're thinking and feeling.
Yeah. And part of the challenge is like the ways in which media is now operating is mirroring the conditions to what created the addiction drama.
Yes.
And so we are constantly being pulled out of ourselves, and that lack of contact with ourselves results in behavior that we're not attending to, exaggerations. You know, we're not able to identify how much energy, how much emotion, how much focus is actually needed to functionally adapt to things in our world. Instead, we're guessing or we're relying on old behavior or old patterns of how much energy, attention, and emotion is needed.
Yes.
And so we're misaligned so much because we're being taken away. Our focus and our attention is being, literally controlled now by other people, which is called the attentional economy. Like there's a name for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this is where cancel culture was kind of born?
I think cancel culture is a bit different. I think, there's a way, I've seen cancel culture is really interesting. And I notice in myself, even talking about it, I'm like, will I get canceled? Because I've done a lot on my podcast of deconstructing cancel culture, and going, we can't harm people in the same way we've been harmed. We can't, in the same way we can't move towards wholeness if we're fragmenting other people.
Yeah.
And trauma is a fragmentation. Yeah. And so, I think it's a replication of the trauma with the intention of making change. And unfortunately, we just can't other people and fragment other people as a means to create more systemic wholeness.
Yes. back to feeling those underlying feelings.
Oof, can we avoid those?
Please. How do we take the first step to actually bringing those feelings up? Because I feel like I struggle with that. I'm like, okay, let me intentionally try to feel what's underlying. And it's so hard to even know what's there.
Yeah, it's really hard to look under the hood and make contact with things we've been avoiding, because like how many years and how many strategies do we have of avoiding? Mm-hmm. And that's actually what we have to kind of get to first before we go to the underlying feelings. It's like, okay, so what are all the ways that you distract from being in contact with your emotions and your feelings?
Me?
Yeah, let's name it. Like,
okay. Overworking,
check, same.
Overscheduling,
same.
Just making myself as busy as possible.
Yeah.
You know, like making plans even if I don't want to.
Yeah.
Just like filling the calendar.
Yeah. Do you ever like just scroll?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
That's why I want to delete my social media, because I feel like it's a huge problem for me.
Yeah.
Just like getting lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Other strategies that I'll just add to the pile like that I do. I definitely overscheduled. I would go to school. I would just keep going to fucking one school after the next to avoid so much shit. I would I would isolate myself from like friends to avoid hard conversations. You know, I think there's so many strategies that
buying things.
Oh my gosh.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Worrying about my health.
Me. I hyperfixate on health. Yeah.
Yeah. Or my body. Like, you know, I was a dancer. And so like, you know, any weight gain, I would just be like, oh my gosh, this is the end of my career. I'm done for. You can hear the drama. It's like, that's what we call internal revving. Yeah. External revving is focusing on things outside of us to keep ourselves disconnected.
Yeah.
And in a state of agitation activation, stress activation. And so once we start recognizing all the ways we interrupt our own settling or peace, then we have the tools, or then we have at least the knowledge that, okay, these are the ways I'm doing it. These are the moments I'm doing it. And then we can start to action, not what's underneath it, but action. Can we give ourselves more space between the stimulus and our over-exaggerated response? And so if I can create more of a gap, so if I go, okay, when I'm alone by myself and I start to have a feeling, and then I jump to worrying about how much weight I've gained in the last month, or what I'm going to look like this summer. You know, I'm like going, okay, that's revving. I am distracting. I'm stressing myself up and using that stress as a distractor from my underlying feelings. Okay. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go, what was happening right before? Oh, I think I was feeling kind of lonely. That's interesting. So I'm connecting already. When I feel lonely, I start to rev. Okay. So next time I feel a little lonely, I'm going to call a friend. I'm already starting to interrupt the revving.
Okay.
So the more I interrupt the revving, the more I'm getting out of the habit of distracting myself or being distracted by other things. Because it's not like it's just we're distracting ourselves. Watching the news will overstimulate our nervous system.
People are addicted to the news.
Of course. It's a beautiful way of getting that high of stress, because let's not forget, stress does great things for us. It's a natural pain reliever. You go for a run, you get that endorphic high. It blocks the pain receptors. So already stress is going to reduce, quote unquote, your perception of pain. It's going to give you a boost of energy. Like we're drinking, what are you drinking?
It's like a mushroom coffee.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm drinking water, but if we were drinking caffeine, I can't even say the word.
Caffeine.
Caffeine.
This has a little caffeine.
Does it?
But I can't have real coffee because I get, like, I'm just so revved up.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I've never had coffee.
Ever in
my life.
That's
never.
Insane.
Isn't it?
That's insane.
I'll try it with you though. No.
Like, but is it because you are so revved up anyway? Like, did you always know it wasn't for you?
No, it's because my mom told me that it would stunt my growth. And I never drank it. And then by the time I could, I was too hyperactive.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, this wouldn't help.
I mean, you'd think so. And then I have my husband who's the most high energy person ever, and he slams 3 cold brews a day.
Oh, shit.
No, it's insane.
Maybe it's not even meeting, like all that caffeine isn't even meeting his like normal baseline state of hyper arousal.
He wants chaos.
He loves
he
it.
makes decisions that are inevitably going to end in chaos because he loves it.
How is that for you? Let's dive into it. Fuck my book. Let's talk about this shit.
No, not fuck your book.
No, we'll come back to it.
I need the book, clearly. I mean, sorry, Greg, I'm going to put you on blast right now.
And we can't wait till we bring him in.
I know. He needs a full session with you, seriously.
And by the way, I promise we'll get back to how do you get to the underlying feelings.
We will, please, because I need that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
The positive I would say about Greg is that his high energy and addiction to chaos has allowed him to help build this massive company that we have because he has very high risk tolerance, very high stress tolerance.
Yes. All things related to addiction, by the way.
Yeah. Period. Exactly.
Period.
But he just makes these crazy choices. Things are always happening with Greg. He had this car that he was obsessed with that he would drive too fast and he ended up crashing it. Yeah.
There's always something, quote unquote.
He flies so close to the sun.
Yeah.
Schedules his day to the point where it's inevitably something's going to happen and go wrong. And this is a constant for him. Yeah. And I can when I spend time with him and his family, and I love his family so much, they're New York, Long Island.
Yeah.
They are talking over each other.
Yes.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
And different to how my family was chaotic. Yeah. So just watching the way he runs his life, it's everything's in fast motion.
Everything is urgent.
And I've heard you talk about anxiety being this sort of addiction to urgency kind of, and everything's in fast motion.
Yeah, anxiety loves the illusion that everything is urgent.
Yeah, what is that?
It's part of that innate rhythm, right? Because if we can speed up past the point of sensing and feeling, we can avoid it. And it's we live in an urgency culture, right?
Yeah.
Everything is now. And if you're not doing it now, you're going to fail and you're not going to thrive or survive. And that rhythm, that tempo, again, it's living in New York. If you've ever been to Minnesota, for example, where I'm from, and then you get to New York and you are oh my God, I feel like I just drank 5 coffees. Mm-hmm. Except for those of us who are already so revved up, by the time we moved to New York, we were finally, the rhythm of me.
Yeah.
And New York is just such a prime example of we both moved out of New York, and it's it took me a while to recalibrate that I was safe outside of that rhythm.
Oh my gosh, that's so valid. Yeah.
Because that rhythm is paired with this idea of safety. Mm-hmm. That speed, that hyper focus, that hyper attention is what's going to keep me safe.
Yes.
Or, if we grow up in a family where everyone's yelling over each other, you have to be the smartest, you have to be the fastest, you have to be the loudest in order to be seen and heard and felt. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, you will perish into the abyss.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way with my work. And since moving to Austin, I feel like I've detached myself a bit from the hustle culture. Even being back here now, and I have a crazy schedule this week, I'm not finding the same joy in it that I used to.
Yes. Good. That's a great sign.
I'm noticing that. Yes. And I'm this isn't really for me anymore.
Wow. That's huge.
I'm feeling so much more peaceful in my life in Austin.
Yeah.
Yes, I still panic a little bit when I have these gaps in my schedule, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with that. Yeah. And that's more so my baseline now. Yeah. And the overworking is not bringing me joy.
No.
But I'm still struggling with, let's say I do have a gap or I have a day where I don't have so much going on. What can I do to ground myself and tap into what are the underlying feelings that I'm not allowing myself to feel?
Way to bring it back.
Thanks.
So impressive.
Just a little loop, just podcast things.
Just podcasting.
Loop it back.
Loop it back. So we've created that gap like we talked about. Okay, I'm noticing, like you said, I'm noticing that these are my patterns. I'm interrupting the pattern. I'm starting to rev no, I'm not. I'm going to do a grounding practice, like a somatic grounding practice. I'm going to feel the weight of my body in this chair right now. I'm going to see where I can say yes to the chair receiving my weight. I'm going to notice all the ways I'm trying to like pull myself out of being supported because it's vulnerable. And so I'm going to keep grounding myself. And then I go, okay, I've interrupted the pattern enough of revving. It's like it opens up it's like a cloud bed opening up to reveal the sun. And with that light, we get to see what's underneath that we've otherwise avoided. So it's like going, okay, I'm looking underneath the hood. And as you kind of delve into like, what's the feelings or sensations in my body? What are the things that haven't been recognized? I can even ask myself that question. It's a great meditation of like, I tune in, I go, what wants to be known? What wants to be felt? I'm safe enough now. What wants to be known? What wants to be felt? And let whatever emotions or words or sensations or images just come up without judging them, and notice the impulse to rev away from it.
Yeah.
And the more we can start to attune to what is here that hasn't been addressed, and the more we actually start to make contact with it, like, oh, there's like this tightness in my chest. Okay. So we take some time to just be with that. Is there words with that tightness? Are there feelings with that tightness? Is there a memory that comes with the tightness? What if I imagine dipping my finger into that tightness, making contact with it? Oh my God, I just feel like this anxiety that's been there, this sense of like threat. Oh my God, there's terror in my chest that has never been felt. That's just been hanging out there. And all of these strategies called that we do as part of our addiction to drama have been ways of trying to survive not being overwhelmed and flooded by those feelings.
Wow.
And so that's kind of the strategy of like entering in.
Yeah.
Now, once we start making enough space, we can start processing all those underlying pains and traumas that fuel the behavior of an addiction to drama.
Yeah.
And it's once we've sort of dealt with that, then we can start to go, how can I start to feel safe in my own body? Because an addiction is anything that gives us some relief from the underlying pain that we carry. And so much of our pain is the absence of us, the ways we have disconnected, vacated, dissociated, abandoned ourself as a means of survival. And the ways our body responds to that over time is a signal of pain or anxiety.
Wow.
Anxiety, like, is one of the ways we recognize something in us has not been identified or recognized or processed.
Yeah.
It's an alarm signal that's calling us up to say, hey, pay attention. And it is in the same vein as pain. And so, it's so important to get rid of, to process through that anxiety and that underlying pain. But more so, it's so imperative to come back home to ourselves, because that will stop the addictive process.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing more that we have to avoid, so to speak. I mean, there is one more tough stage.
What?
Two more tough stages is navigating our identities with the pain, with the victimhood, with the whatever it is. So identity is essentially the repetition of being. That's what it means. So it's like all those times I felt like I was a victim, all those times the world was against me, all those times I was like created fury and anger as a means of not letting anyone come too close to me. That becomes part of our identity because we repeated those states of being so many times.
Yeah.
So even though the fuel is gone, we have to almost offer ourselves a funeral for those identities that no longer fit us.
You almost have to grieve that.
You have to
part of
grieve it.
yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
How do you tap into the identity you were before all of those defense mechanisms?
We might not have had one. And so like that's, it often is when, I not too long ago was in a very, like I haven't had one of these like deep unfurling therapy sessions for a long time.
Yeah.
And I had one and I just felt like, oh my God, I left this session. I was like, I don't know who I am anymore, which I love. Like I've done this enough to go like, that's a really positive stage. Like if I don't have my identity that I'm gripping to, I don't know who I am. And that's the space of discovery of who I am without the trauma and the survival strategies.
Wow.
But it's very fucking uncomfortable.
Yeah. You almost need to sit in that discomfort.
You have to sit and tolerate the discomfort of not knowing who you are without the strategies.
Wow. I think another thing that popped in my head when you were talking about this is like, I feel like sadness is a big thing that a lot of us avoid.
Yeah.
And I'm almost like, is it okay to be sad?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I would say so many of us avoid different emotions depending on what was like the emotion to avoid in our family systems. You know, like yours might have been sadness that was not very, wasn't modeled or provided support for, but like anger might have been supported or, you know, modeled, or in like Greg's family, I don't know, I'm just making up, like joy might have been something that wasn't modeled.
Yeah.
But working hard and like the sort of aggressiveness might have been something that was supported. So I think we have to go back to the blueprint of our emotions and identify what were the emotions, what were the feelings that were modeled and allowed, and what were the ones that weren't, because we're most likely avoiding those. And if we're avoiding any emotion, we're in our process of what's going to become an addiction to drama, because what does it take to avoid the underlying emotions, our core feelings? It takes strategy. It takes a certain amount of stress and stimulus to avoid that, to disconnect from it.
How do you feel? This might seem like it's out of left field.
I'm open to that.
How do you feel about like ketamine treatments or like psilocybin?
Oh, I think it depends on the individual.
Okay.
It's not universal, just great for everyone. I think that there's a lot of preparatory work you have to do and a lot of post-integration. It's not a magic bullet.
Okay.
I think what it does, psilocybin, ketamine, MDMA therapies, all of those, what they do is they momentarily take down the barrier, take down the survival strategies that are often acting as the protector of our early wounds.
Yeah.
And so it's a way of potentially bypassing or moving beyond those survival strategies, which allows us to more potentially go into the depths of the wounding.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And that's just so interesting to me, because I feel like, I don't know if you could relate to this, but I, for many years, was a little bit performative with my therapist.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like a crazy concept that I would show up and be like,
so many of us are.
Today, like, I like wanted to impress her or make her feel like I was making progress or be funny. Like going into it with this idea of like, I need to sell her me and be the best like patient ever, which is such a crazy like.
Well, what would she have done in your belief system if you didn't impress her? She would have
been
left
like
you.
Disappointed or abandoned me for sure.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I show up a bit more authentically.
Yeah.
I had one of those sessions like you mentioned the other day where I finally brought something up that I've been avoiding for so long.
Wow.
And just to get it out,
Yes.
you know,
Huge.
is a wild experience.
Yeah.
But her and I briefly discussed ketamine treatment, and I've just been hearing about it more and more. And I think it's so interesting that it really allows you to kind of like go there.
It does. And you have to have a lot of preparatory work for it. And it sounds like you have.
And trust with the person you're doing it with.
Trust with the person. And there's a lot of integration work after, because it's like, you know, in therapy, it might take 30 sessions to slowly kind of roll the window down of those survival strategies, so to speak.
Yeah.
And to let the breeze in and so forth. And then the integration process is more often like titrated. And so this is a fast track, and it can overwhelm our nervous system if we don't have enough support and resilience to go into it. And so that's why I say like the preparatory work, because it's like, if you just rip yourself open, but you haven't developed the capacity to be with your own emotions or trust other people to help you be with yours, you're going to flood. And I've unfortunately had enough people in my office that went in and did psychedelic retreats, and they ended up more dissociated, more disconnected than when they went in.
Wow. I could see that happening because I feel like this has just become so popular, the ayahuasca. Everyone's doing it. But if you don't have that like background or trust, I could see that being such a big problem.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who is married to, friends with, associated with someone who's addicted to drama, like what is the first step? Because we were talking about it before, that the people who are addicted don't know that they're addicted.
Yeah, usually someone with an addiction is the last to know there's an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, look, addiction to drama doesn't make sense to most people. Like, why the fuck would anyone use stress as a pain relief or to distract themselves? And I've said before, like, it is a natural pain reliever. It gives you energy. It makes you feel closer to people.
Yeah.
It's a social glue. Like, and it gives you enough sensation to rise above that threshold of numbness. And just knowing these things, like, why do they, instead of like, I don't know if Greg does this, but like I did it, and certainly other people with an addiction and trauma, they either crisis hop or they can't be soothed by you. So instead of being soothed, they pull you into their chaos. And so they feel like at least they're, seen and heard by pulling someone in. Like, so many of us feel like, oh my gosh, they go, what just happened? I don't even know how I got involved, but suddenly I got involved with that person. And so to go back to your question, it's like just even understanding the psychology and the physiology of what's going on. And it's not, they don't want this. Nobody wants to burn down a village to get the warmth from it. They just want the warmth. But they don't have the tools to go, hey, can we turn on the fire? Or can you get me a blanket? And so that compassionate understanding, as hard as it is, because I know it's hard. I've been on both sides of it. I've been the one to burn down the village, but I've also been on the receiving end of going, whoa, how did I just get in smack dab in the middle of this fire? I had nothing to do with this. So the compassion and understanding to go, this is why, this is what's happening, can be a relief. Knowing it's not about you.
Yeah.
Because so often in the addiction to drama, especially when it's relationally oriented, it will be a lot of like, it's about you. You did this, or it's big fights, or big emotions, as we talked about, that seem disproportionate. So I think that that's a big piece of it. I think, finding your own practice of how do you shake off the stress? How do you shake off, because stress is contagious. It's actually it is the most, love and stress are the most contagious emotional, physiological responses. So in our side story about our biological evolution of stress, fun words. So like, let's say you're really nervous right now, which I don't think you are. You seem pretty chill.
You're freaking me out.
I'm freaking you out. Like, if you come into the podcast really nervous, I'm going to feel it. I'm going to actually have a measured response in my saliva, in my cortisol levels, in my heart rate, that will mirror your stress response. That is designed as a means of our evolutionary survival.
I've encountered that. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. It's like when someone walks in the room and they're like joyous and effervescent, you also have that feeling. It's contagious. Emotions are contagious.
Yeah.
But stress is the most contagious. We are designed to be the most sensitive to other states of stress, because if it means our survival, we need to be able to, take that in and be responsive. So if like a tiger is chasing me and I run into this room, you're not going to be like, what's going on? Your physiology is going to reflexively respond to also run away, even if you don't know why. I mean, you might still ask me. I'll be like, we gotta go.
Where are we going?
We gotta go. Who cares? They're a tiger. So you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
If you have a husband or a partner or a friend or a sibling or a teacher or whoever who's addicted to drama, you got to start to go, what's happening in me? Can I tolerate this? Or how do I mobilize it and move it through? So do I need to go for a run? Do I need, after interacting with them, do I need to go shout and hit a punching bag? Whatever it takes to release your stress.
Yeah.
And so imperative. And another big piece is one of the things that they will do is pull you into their shit. It's their way of being in relationship to you. The safest way to be in relationship to you is to pull you into their tornado of chaos.
Yep.
And so you have to be able to anchor yourself back in your own body, back into your own feelings, back into your own sensations, back into your own sense of weight and groundedness. Because once they start pulling, it's really easy to be extracted from your own body. It's like all of a sudden they have control over you.
Do you have a line that you would say to someone to set a boundary?
Like like my own boundary, or what I would say to someone who is in their active state of
like if
drama?
Someone ran up to you and they were telling you everything that was going on in their relationship, like, oh, he's such a this, he's such a that. Like, do you have a response that you go to?
Yeah, I have a couple of responses.
Oh, can you give us?
Yeah, one is fuck off.
Oh, love.
No, I'm just kidding. We'll edit that one out. No, I'm just kidding.
I love that.
No, one is like, hey, I see there's a lot going on. Can we take a step back and I need to see if I'm available to really meet you there. That's one I've done a lot. I've gone, ooh, feels like there's a lot going on. Let's take a walk. Let's mobilize some of this energy together so that we're not stuck in like a very close proximity where someone's just like telling me their drama.
Walking is so powerful.
So powerful.
I've heard a statistic because you're not like looking head on.
Yes.
You end up opening up more and kind of being more self-reflective.
Exactly. It's called parallel play.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know there was a name for it.
Yeah, it comes from like working in pediatrics. Like, you never go in, like when a kid is having an emotional experience, you always parallel play. You go to their side and you're there as a support. But also in that openness, you won't be consumed by it.
Yeah.
Because you're on the side of them our frontal orientation is very vulnerable. And it's very direct. Yep. And if I start freaking out, you're going to feel it more than if I turn my chair to the side and I like maybe look at you and I'm having a feeling.
Yeah.
But it's not as, you're not going to be swallowed up by it. Go zoom tight. How dramatic.
I know. Addicted to the drama. Just like really dramatic sneezing. Sorry. And then you had a third tool.
In terms of boundaries?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is sometimes you have to walk away from the relationship. And that is a boundary about your preservation. Make it about you and not about them. Like if you're not able to be with them, that's okay. No shame in that game. Sometimes it's too much. And it's important. Look, if you can't even be with yourself because you're overwhelmed by them, you're not actually going to be available for them.
Yes. So good. And valuing that self-respect and knowing when it's time to walk away. I had to do that on my journey and just let go of like, you know, a group of friends that I was a different person with.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because I think friendship circles are so tricky. Because the friends we had as we were deep in our wounds and we keep them out of like familiarity are going to have the hardest time when we evolve and change.
100%.
And they may keep pushing us back into our trauma responses or survival responses, or really keep us from evolving if they're not doing their work too. And this is so hard because it's like there are memory keepers. They're the people who've been with us maybe even the longest, but they're not part of our evolution.
Yes, so true. I experienced that head on with my weight loss journey.
Yeah?
I was like a partier.
Yeah.
You know, the person that everyone would go to if they wanted to go out in college. Like I had a crazy girl phase for sure. And I have some of my funniest, craziest memories with those people. Yeah. But I hit a point where I was like, this is dragging me backwards. Like I need to move forward. And
Yeah.
I look back and I regret the way that I handled that departure. Like I kind of just
Should we call them
ghosted.
now?
I mean, actually, I did
did?
apologize and rekindle with one
Wow.
of the friends and
Okay.
a couple of them actually.
Yeah.
But still, like, it is painful to kind of like, it's so interesting when you're around people from a different part of your life, how
Yeah.
it like brings things up.
It will bring out the familiar.
Yes, 100%.
You know, it's like I have a friend who was telling me she used to work in corporate America, and it's like they hated their job, they hated their boss, they would vent and gossip constantly, and then they both became therapists. Makes sense. It's the natural progression. And they moved to different states, and she was telling me that like when they get back together, they fall back into that venting.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about like what to do. Can the relationship evolve to something that wasn't about drama bonding?
Yep. You almost need to re-find a new system.
Exactly.
And what else can we connect on?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's hard even like in relationships where it's like you entered into the relationship through trauma bonding or drama bonding. And then when you start to heal, it's like you might go, do we have anything in common?
Yeah.
And that's such a hard place to be. And the thing that often prevents us from healing, because that's a fear that we could drift apart.
I'm sure there are girls listening right now who are in toxic
Yeah.
relationships. And I mean, I've been with Greg for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
So I haven't really experienced that. Actually, that's not true. I had a couple toxic relationships before Greg, and I think it can be really addictive for people.
Super. It unearths again our reenactment of like, it's the hardest thing to do, because I've been in these toxic relationships. How many meth addicts did I date? Many. I've never done a drug in my life. How many have I dated? Many.
Stop.
And I kept going like, it's them. But I didn't reclaim my power until I said, what's the common denominator? It's me. And what is it in the best intention of why I keep entering into these really toxic situations or these really painful situations? It's like, oh, something in me wants to heal from it. So I keep putting myself in the familiar scenario in hopes I will.
In hopes it'll be different.
In hopes it'll be different. In hopes I'll learn through this process.
Yeah.
And so often I'm too stressed out and will default to my survival strategies, which got me into the trouble in the first place.
Dr. Scott, this was incredible. You are amazing.
No, you're amazing.
Tell us about your new book.
Yeah, the book is called Addicted to Drama, Healing the Dependency on Crisis and Chaos in Yourself and Others. And it's, wherever books are sold, and it's a fun one. It really does give a empathetic, supportive response to both those who have an addiction to drama or, have a drama dabbler, we might say. And for those of us who just know or who have grown up around those people and are in our own healing process.
I think so many people could benefit from this book. I feel like even if we are a more healed version of ourselves, we still encounter this all the time. I know I do. Where can everyone find you online? I love following your content. You have the best quotes. I pulled so many of them. I was like, oh, yes. Obsessed.
You're so sweet. I love you. You can find me on social media at I realized I didn't have to say the at, but also www. Dr. Scott Lyons, DrScottLyons, and then that's also my website.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, love. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. To support this show, please rate and review and share with your loved ones. If you want to be reminded of new episodes, click the subscribe button on your preferred podcast or video player. You can sign up for my newsletter to receive my favorites at marilewellyn.com. It will be linked in the show notes. This is a Wellness Out Loud production produced by Drake Peterson, Fiona Attucks, and Kelly Kyle. This show is edited by Mike Fry, and our video is recorded by Luis Vargas. You can also watch the full video of each episode on our YouTube channel at Mari Fitness. Love you, Power Girls and Power Boys. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team.